There's a kind of thinking that doesn't solve problems, it creates them. It's the voice in your head that never stops rehearsing conversations that never happened, that replays your past with surgical precision, analyzing every glance, every silence, every word you did or didn't say. It's exhausting, and worse, it feels like control, but it's actually a trap. Have you ever sat in silence only to find your mind doing everything but being still? Planning, overanalyzing, predicting the worst-case scenario. It's like your thoughts have hijacked your body. Even when life is calm outside, inside it feels like a storm is raging. That storm is not made of external problems. It's made of interpretations, projections, and assumptions. It's your mind on autopilot, trying to make sense of things that haven't even happened. This kind of mental hyperactivity often starts subtly. A small uncertainty, a text that wasn't replied to, a strange look from someone. And then, without noticing, you're 3 hours deep into a rabbit hole of imagined futures and rewritten pasts. You think you're getting closer to clarity, but in truth, you're drifting further away from reality, from yourself, from peace. People think that thinking is always a strength, but when you think too much, you start to live less. Your senses dull. You stop noticing the texture of the world around you. You lose spontaneity. Your body becomes tense, your breath shallow. You smile less. You're no longer in life, you're in your head, like someone watching a movie but never participating in the scene. There's a quiet kind of suffering in people who think too much. It's invisible. You appear functional. You say all the right things. You get your tasks done. But inside, it's chaos. You're overanalyzing friendships, doubting your worth, questioning if that opportunity was really meant for you. And the saddest part, no one sees it, because mental noise doesn't scream, it hums, constantly, just below the surface. Science confirms that chronic overthinking activates the same brain regions involved in pain. It's not just uncomfortable, it's neurologically damaging. The more you loop through thoughts, the more you reinforce those neural pathways. You become trapped in a maze. You're unconsciously building yourself. Each what-if becomes a brick, each rumination a wall, until one day you're not navigating life anymore. You're surviving it. And here's the cruel irony. Your mind thinks it's protecting you, that if it can analyze enough, prepare enough, be smart enough, it can prevent pain. But in trying to avoid pain, it ends up becoming the source of it, like a fire alarm that won't stop ringing, even when there's no fire. At some point, the alarm itself becomes the danger. Think of all the things you've said no to, not because you didn't want them, but because you thought about them too much. You talked yourself out of love. You delayed your dreams into oblivion. You waited for the perfect moment that never came, and you called it wisdom. But it wasn't wisdom, it was fear disguised as logic. Overthinking isn't clarity, it's hesitation wearing a mask. Even your body knows the truth. That's why you feel drained without doing anything physical. That's why your stomach tightens before a decision. That's why your chest feels heavy when you lie awake at night. Your body is begging for presence, for surrender, for rest. But the mind doesn't rest unless you teach it how. You were not born to be a thinker. You were born to be a feeler, a doer, a lover, a creator. Thought is a tool, not a home. And when you live inside your mind too long, life starts happening outside of you. You watch it go by, through windows, through screens, through secondhand stories, but you don't live it. And what you don't live, you lose. There's a voice inside you that knows exactly what to do. It doesn't argue, it doesn't rush, it just knows. But most of us don't hear it, not because it's silent, but because the noise in our heads is louder. That voice is your intuition, and it's the most honest part of you. But when you overthink, you drown it out. Have you ever had a gut feeling about something? Someone you shouldn't trust, a path you should have taken, a situation you knew wasn't right, but you ignored it because your mind reasoned otherwise. That's not just coincidence. That's your inner intelligence trying to protect you, trying to guide you, and every time you override it with logic, you lose a little more access to it. The mind craves evidence. But intuition doesn't work with evidence. It works with energy, with resonance, with subtle impressions that the mind can't always explain. That's why it's so easy to miss. Overthinking will demand a why for everything. But intuition doesn't always offer one, it just is. And when you're used to being in control, that can feel terrifying. Modern science even backs this up. The vagus nerve, one of the largest nerves in your body, connects your gut, heart, and brain. It's a literal communication line between your instincts and your thoughts. So when people say, "I had a gut feeling," it's not just a metaphor, it's biology. But here's where it gets deeper. Intuition isn't just a survival tool. It's also a compass for purpose. It's the force that nudges you toward what makes you feel alive, not just what makes sense. That sudden urge to change cities, the unexplainable pull toward a person, the creative idea that came to you at 3 a.m. These aren't random. They're invitations, clues from your unconscious, whispers from your deeper self. But they come softly, and only when the noise quiets. And that's the tragedy of overthinking. It disconnects you from the magic of these whispers. When you overanalyze every step, life becomes mechanical. You start choosing what's safe instead of what's true. You start living from the neck up and forget you have a soul. If this is resonating with you, take a breath. You're not alone. And this is exactly why we're having this conversation. If you're feeling something stir inside, if you feel seen, I invite you to subscribe and share this video with someone else who lives too much in their head. Help this message reach the people who need to hear it, because the deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. Your inner voice never left. It's just waiting for you to listen. And what happens when you finally do might change everything. There is a subtle grief in missing your own life while it's happening, not because it's gone, but because your mind was somewhere else. You were at the dinner table but replaying a mistake from last week. You were watching the sunset but worrying about next month's bills. You were holding someone you love but scrolling through an endless feed of strangers. And slowly, without noticing, your presence fades, not just from the world but from yourself. Overthinking steals the present moment. It replaces being with processing. Instead of living your experiences, you're analyzing them in real time. Did I say the right thing? What will they think? How could this go wrong? Your body is in the moment, but your awareness is not. And without awareness, there is no true living, only existing. Mindfulness isn't about meditating on a mountaintop. It's about being here, fully. It's noticing the way your coffee smells in the morning, feeling the texture of your skin under warm water, listening, truly listening, to someone without preparing your response. But when you're trapped in the spiral of thought, these moments pass by unnoticed, like pages in a book you forgot to read. And the mind is clever. It convinces you that if you just think a little more, worry a little longer, you'll finally gain control. But control is a myth. Life doesn't ask for control. It asks for participation. And when you're not present, you can't participate. You're just surviving a script that never stops playing. Did you know that your brain processes over 6,000 thoughts per day? Most of them are repetitive. Most of them are untrue. And many of them are based on outdated fears, not current reality. That means the moment you're in, this very moment, is often being filtered through a distorted lens. What if the problem isn't life, but the way your mind frames life? Presence is power. It's not passive. It's a radical return to what is, to the breath, to the heartbeat, to the truth that this moment, right now, is the only thing that ever actually exists. The past is memory, the future is fantasy, and thinking too much about either keeps you locked out of the only place you can truly make change, the now. And in that now, something strange happens. The anxiety softens, the noise fades. A clarity rises that didn't come from thinking. It came from stopping, from allowing, from returning. Because when you reclaim your presence, something else wakes up inside you, something ancient, something powerful, something that's been waiting to come alive. You've probably heard it before. You attract what you are. But what most people don't realize is how overthinking interferes with that very process. Manifestation isn't about wishing harder. It's about aligning your energy with what you desire. And the energy of overthinking, it's scattered, anxious, and full of resistance. You might want something deeply, but if your mind is constantly doubting, replaying, calculating every possibility, you're unconsciously pushing it away. Here's the thing. The universe doesn't respond to your thoughts alone. It responds to your state. And when your state is dominated by mental loops, what if it doesn't work? Am I good enough? Should I wait? You're sending out a frequency of hesitation, not trust. And trust is the currency of creation. Think about a time when something flowed easily into your life. Maybe it was a relationship, a job, an opportunity. Chances are you weren't obsessing over it. You were open, receptive, available. That openness allows reality to meet you. But when you're caught in mental tension, you create a kind of static that blocks the signal. You may be asking for a new life, but your mind keeps tuning into the same old station. Even neuroscience agrees. Our brain has a filter system called the reticular activating system, RAS, which helps us notice opportunities aligned with our focus. But here's the twist. If your mind is consumed with fear, doubt, or past failures, your RAS will highlight more of that. More things to fear, more reasons to doubt, more reminders of what didn't work. In other words, your reality starts to mirror your overthinking. We sabotage manifestation not because we don't want something, but because we don't know how to relax into receiving it. Overthinking creates a grip, and nothing flows into a clenched hand. You plan every detail, rehearse every outcome, trying to force the future into shape. But real manifestation works differently. It requires surrender. It asks you to trust not just in the outcome, but in your worthiness to receive it. This doesn't mean you stop thinking entirely. It means you become aware of when your thoughts are serving you and when they're stalling you, because there's a fine line between preparation and paralysis. And many people mistake fear for logic, hesitation for intelligence. But underneath it all is the same silent truth. A part of you is afraid to let go. But what if letting go isn't losing control, but finally stepping into your power? What if ease isn't weakness, but a doorway? Because once you stop trying to think your way into a better life, you might start feeling your way into one. There comes a moment when you realize the mind won't quiet itself, not because it's broken, but because it was never meant to run the show alone. The mind is a magnificent tool, but a terrible master. Healing from overthinking isn't about shutting down your thoughts. It's about shifting your relationship with them, from identification to observation. And that shift begins with stillness. Stillness is not the absence of thought. It's the space where thought loses its grip. Most people are terrified of silence because in that silence, the mind loses its control. But that's exactly where the healing begins. When you sit quietly, no phone, no distraction, just you and your breath, the surface chaos starts to rise. It feels uncomfortable. Your mind resists. It throws random memories, anxieties, even guilt at you. But this is not failure. This is detox. We live in a culture addicted to stimulation, the constant scroll, the background noise, the urgency to be productive. But this overstimulation keeps us from accessing the deeper layers of the psyche, the unconscious, where the real transformation happens. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this is the essence of mental healing, bringing light into the places your mind avoids. Journaling, meditation, time in nature. These aren't just wellness habits. They are acts of spiritual rebellion in a world obsessed with noise. They reconnect you with the forgotten languages of the soul, intuition, emotion, presence. When you start listening inward, you notice something remarkable. Your body has been speaking to you all along, that tightness in your chest, a boundary you ignored, the restless sleep, an unresolved decision, the constant mental noise, a signal you've been away from yourself too long. Even simple rituals can shift your internal state. Lighting a candle before journaling, sitting with your eyes closed for 5 minutes before starting your day, walking barefoot on grass. These small acts ground you. They bring the mind out of the clouds and back into the body, the only place where real life is happening. The truth is, you are not broken, you are overwhelmed. Your mind has been trying to protect you the only way it knows how, by thinking. But now it's time to teach it a new language: trust, surrender, presence. Because beneath all the layers of noise, of logic, of fear, there is something untouched, something sacred, something waiting to come home.